Thanks for stopping by. I'd like to preface this video by saying it is not a knitting tutorial, but it means to have something playing in the background while you work on your own project. If you're like me and really enjoy having something on while you work, sometimes the content you like is very visually engaging and you're several hours in and haven't gotten nearly as far along in your project as you would have liked to. So that's where I come in. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. It is Monday for you. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. I have a lot in the next couple days to talk about of what I was up to this weekend, but let me go ahead and introduce the project of the day with you, and for the rest of the week, because if you are familiar with my channel, you know that I like to do 3 videos and hopefully one sitting so that I have content to upload on my Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. But here we are. This is my cousin's sock. You can see we've made a lot of progress since the last time we saw each other, and I am about 6 3/4 inches in length at this point, and I need to be at 7 1/2, so I have almost an inch left of knitting to do before we can start shaping the toe and then start on our next sock. So we will just be working on this one sock for the week, and then next week you'll probably see me with a new one to make the pair. So let me just get started, and right now this is just a simple stockinette. I had a 10 rows of 2x2 rib as the cuff, and then I just did stockinette all the way down to save myself some time and keep things nice and simple, very foolproof, or so I think, sock with this one. And for the folks that realize, or for those of you who were with me when I was knitting her daughter's sock, and I mentioned how I had holes where I had connected the heel flap in the round and did the heel shaping and all of that. This time I don't. So I've learned from the second sock of the pair that I made for her daughter that I kind of need to go down and at an angle to kind of pull things together and then get those stitches nice and tight once I pick them up. So I think I got it, but we'll see. It's always a little bit of trial and error to see what it looks like, because just going by what the instructions were, picking up one in the middle made a really big hole in the first sock I did. So let us continue. Also, actually, I lied. Before we start, you see, hopefully you guys can see this where I am, but you see how it's just green and then bam, we're in purple again. These are fused together and it's not a gradient, so maybe that's just because of how the yarn was made, but the fact that I don't have like this gradual color gradient with the rest of the sock and it just goes green purple again is a little bit like, okay, I could see why this yarn would be on sale. I don't know if all of the other chroma yarns are like this, where it's just fused together and you don't have a nice gradient change in color like the rest of the yarn, because this is a join. This green is one whole spindle of yarn, whatever, grouping of yarn, and then it connects right here. It's fused together right here where the rest of the yarn continues. So considering how much yarn I have left, I don't see any clear indications that there's another quick join like that, but you know, the whole middle part, I have no idea what's going on in here. So I'll see if I come across any more, but I'll just say right now I've encountered one join where the colors are very different and there isn't a gradual change in color where one ball of yarn was attached to another ball of yarn right here. Now I will begin. But yes, I hope you had a great weekend, or a good weekend, or even a so-so weekend, as long as it wasn't horrible. But if it was, do share if you care to. Tell me how your weekend was. It is currently 4 minutes after 9 right now. my weekend was very interesting. So I signed up for, it was last week, I got an email from Base Paws. If you're familiar, if you check out my Cats playlist, you'll see probably the latest upload I have in that playlist is me going over the DNA results of Koji and Kabu, who are my two kitties. And Base Paws is the company that I purchased my genetic testing kit from for my cats. Well, I bought two kits, one for each cat, and I went over the results of, what breeds they are, their genetic traits, the likelihood of them having signs of diseases that most cat parents need to look out for, etc., etc. And since I have already purchased the kits, I am part of their mailing list for different updates and things, and they sent out this ad saying, hey, we're having this cat behavior summit on the weekend of the 10th and 11th. And I was like, cool. I, at the time, didn't have anything planned for the weekend, and it was a $10 minimum donation to Cats in Need, and it's actually criticalkittens.org, but the actual foundation that the proceeds went to it's a long one. It's the Chris Griffey Memorial Feline Foundation. And Critical Kittens is basically this organization that helps foster and support neonates and cats, specifically kittens with special need, connecting them. It's a network, and so they foster, put cats with special needs up for adoption. Neonates are some of the most underserved in the cat community because they are so tiny, so vulnerable. The mortality rate is really high in neonates, especially if they're orphaned and can't be with their mom. Around the clock care, it's hard to find people to devote the time and expensive resources. And from the summit, I learned, because I very, very briefly was fostering neonates. Unfortunately, they got sick and passed, but the whole time I was really pushing with the shelter that I worked with to get them help, because I'm like, what do I do? They're getting sick, this one's dehydrated, so they did subcutaneous fluids, I basically gave them saline. The one that ended up living the longest, he had a saline injection to hydrate him, because they had upper respiratory, so they weren't eating because they couldn't smell and breathe very well, and there was so much stuff that this isn't the whole summit, but one particular, it was the second to the last panel today, Sunday, that I'm filming this, was about how to, or just a lot of the challenges with fostering with TNR, which is trap, neuter, or spay and release, and the fact that there are so many vets that consider animals like that a lost cause and don't want to troubleshoot with you and find solutions because the cat has special needs, maybe is paralyzed, maybe has some congenital defects, is too young for treatment, whether it be anesthesia, medication, etc., etc. And that's what some of the trouble I was facing working directly with the shelter that I was neonate fostering for. And the vet was like, they're too little for this, they're too little for that. If you try to treat for parasites, it's gonna wipe out their GI tract of the good bacteria, and then you're just gonna end up with a low weight baby because they're just running through formula because they're passing the parasites and all of that. So it was very it was good to hear that there are vets that do want to work with people to get the help to the kittens and the special needs cats and kittens that need it, instead of just dismissing it as they're too young or too ill for treatment and don't even want to try. It's like, if somebody is willing to pay the money to have, like, you go through the gamut of troubleshooting and trying to figure things out with your animal, then I don't know why they would want to turn that away. But one of the themes from the Saturday panel and the Sunday panel was like ages in the disease. And there was another behaviorist on Saturday, Tabitha something, had mentioned, she works, she's getting her certification to be a behaviorist, or like a licensed one, but she is already, and she's a vet tech. So she's already a vet tech behaviorist, something like that. I forget her exact credentials, but she's trying to get board certified for something. But she is a behavioralist, and mentioned, your older cats, just because they're old doesn't mean they're ill, doesn't mean they're incapable of doing a lot of the things that the younger cat does, doesn't mean they just lost interest in being a cat. And it's not a disease to say that, oh, they're old now, they don't do this or don't do that. And it's more of, what kind of resources do they have? How are you making your home hospitable for them as they age? And it just like, whew, there was a whole lot of stuff. It was so cool because there were some people who were speaking at the summit that I knew about, some books and things that were talked about that I was familiar with and had read, just my own interest in my cats and cats in general. And it was really cool to learn more about cats. Like, you always think some people always think they know everything. I thought I knew a lot just because I care for my kitties and love learning about them, but I learned tons more. And just sitting in front of my computer for 5 to 6 hours that Saturday and Sunday, and thankfully I got to get up for like a couple seconds between each session, but they were pretty much back-to-back sessions it was all Pacific Standard Time, so it was 10 a.m. is when it started on Saturday, and it ended at 4, but the segment that I was in ended at 3 Pacific Time, so it was 5 my time, Central Time here in the Midwest. And then the Sunday session started at 10 Pacific Time again and ended at 4. No. It ended at 5 Pacific Time. Because, it was around 7 when I finally got to get up and cook dinner. Because my partner went out for their walk and stuff, and they're like, did you eat dinner yet? I was like, no, I've been sitting here watching these sessions. And it was just, it was nice. It gave me hope. And it also made me very sad because it made me, I realized, it dawned on me during one of the sessions yesterday on Saturday for me, that Kabu is 7 and she's actually considered a senior cat. And I wouldn't think it, because it's like 7 seems so young, but for a cat, that's old. And especially if you think of cats and how they age and everything. So she's an elder, she's a woman of a certain age. And the behaviorist who was talking about senior cats mentioned that they get arthritis and they can show signs of kidney failure or kidney disease at that point in time. And I was just like, me being a worried wart, just like having all of these bad thoughts about Kabu, and she does overgroom, and thinking of like, oh my gosh, she's stressed I already knew something was letting her off, but like, what could it be? Is she old? Is she in pain? Is she in pain? When I took her to the vet, they didn't see anything wrong with her. They gave her an anti-inflammatory shot just to help with her owies that she was causing herself from licking so much, and she's still licking herself in the same area, like her inner hind legs and her lower, like mid to lower tummy area. And I keep kind of finding her doing it, so I'm like, hey Kabu, maybe you want to stop licking yourself because you're clean and you've been licking yourself for, you know, a good 15 minutes in one spot. There's nothing to lick. You're bare. You're just exposed white tummy. And so thinking more about her, and so I was just like, oh, my poor baby girl. She's so old. She's not a baby anymore. I used to call her Baby Kabu, baby girl, kitty. She is a full-grown woman, and she is an older woman at that. But I have to take her to the vet anyway soon because she's due for her annual checkup. I also want to get her a dental. I mentioned that before here, that she's due for dental, and I'm hoping that maybe when she gets her teeth cleaned that she'll stop licking herself, because in my mind I'm thinking she tastes like what's in her mouth and then thinks it's her fur, even though it's not. It's just her mouth is already just funky. And I also, it's not ideal, but until I can figure out what else is stressing her out, I bought her, it's coming soon, I got her, it's like a Sudical. If you're not familiar with a Sudical, it's like a onesie for a cat that is better than an Elizabethan collar, like the cone of shame, so that they're mobile. They can move around. They can go to the bathroom. It's not blocking their vision. They're basically still free to move about. And so I got her one of those to hopefully help curb the over grooming in the tummy area. It's not ideal because I don't agree with having cats. Hairless cats are colder. They usually have to wear a sweater anyway, but like a full-time cat in an outfit, like Halloween costume, if your cat's cool with it, sure, a little sweater here and there for decoration, like I love that, and I want to actually make some cute little sweaters and things for my kitties just to put them in and take a picture of and then take it right off of them. But right now, until we can figure out what other stressors are happening in the home to get her to stop licking, then I'm hoping it'll get better, because our vet, like, she looked her over, she's like, she's fine. She asked my partner and I, is there anything different going on? And I'm like, no, but we also noticed, or at least I noticed, she didn't start doing this grooming until we moved to this apartment. Or it's not an apartment, it's a townhome. And I thought, well, I wonder if it's dogs, because when she was in the shelter, she was in a room that was closest to the dog side of the shelter, and there was just constant barking, and she was already just a little standoffish in there. And when we took her out of the shelter and we lived in a apartment that was like a concrete box, because it was a old warehouse that was converted into lofts, we didn't hear a lot of noise. There were dogs in the building, but they weren't like right on us, So I wonder, and then the places that we lived post loft concrete sound isolating were also relatively quiet on the dog front. There was definitely noise. There was a dog below us, but it wasn't like constant and extra loud. So I wonder, because the people who lived next door weren't always there, but there was still a dog that barked a lot prior to them moving in too. So I was like, I wonder if it's the dogs. So I have a couple things. I was looking at the pheromone Fellway. I have used it before with fosters that I had. I used it before when we would move, and I'd put it like a little diffuser in the room where the cats would be to get them adjusted. However, I was about to buy some more because it's been a while since I've used it, and a lot of the reviews, not all of them, but quite a few, talk about how the diffuser is leaky, leaves like that oil on the floor, up the wall because the vapors are emanating. And I was like, I don't want that. So it'd been so long since I used it, I forgot what kinds of reactions, or not what kinds of reactions, but what the diffuser was doing. So I'm gonna try some of the like snake oil mumbo jumbo and buy this calming essence by Jackson Galaxy. If you guys know about Jackson Galaxy, he's a very popular, at least in the States, I don't know overseas, but he's popular in the States as like a cat, kind of like the Caesar Milano, or Caesar Milan, yeah, Caesar Milan of dogs, the dog whisperer. He's like the cat whisperer. And he has, you know, a gimmicky kind of, he slapped his name on a product that's supposed to help. They have a line of these like homeopathic herb essence thingies that have different strains that are meant to do different things for your cats, like bullying, aggression, obsession. So I'm getting the obsession one because she's over grooming. Totally clean cat. Vet doesn't see that there's anything wrong with her physically, but there's something going on mentally since we've moved here that has caused her to feel the need to lick the heck out of her tummy area. And for a while it was her tail too. There's some pictures of her, I think on my Instagram, even in my montage when it was her birthday, of like, you could see her tail and it just looks like the burnt end of the candle. Like there was no fur. There was very, very short fur on the tip of her tail for a long time. And maybe just a few months ago it finally grew back. We were calling her rat tail because it literally looked like just a little nubbin thing sticking out of the end of her tail, and she had licked all the fur off of her tail. And I've seen her start to do it again, so she's been extra interested in the tip of her tail. And I was like, no, Kabu, we were doing so well. So I don't want to torture her, but I also don't want her to keep looking and giving herself little scabbies because she's like biting at skin because there's no fur there, and she just keeps grooming and grooming and grooming. But we don't know what is the matter because like she and Koji have had a pretty normal relationship since he's been introduced to the home. They play all the time. I mean, at least every day, maybe twice a day, give or take. They're scamping about with each other. I have not changed her food, but the vet didn't say it was an allergy, but she didn't also say, hey, you've been using the same food. Maybe she's developed an allergy to this food. Maybe we should test the food. And see if she has an allergy. So when I take her in, I'm going to see if maybe that would help too, just to give her an allergy test to see if there's something that's in the home that the vet didn't think about that might be causing her to groom. But just her tummy seems kind of weird. But if you have a cat with allergies, let me know if you notice they're reacting all over or if it's concentrated, because it's just like her belly and her inner leg area that she's licking a lot. And then at one point her tail, but she kind of stopped for the most part licking that. And next weekend, or this weekend I guess, as you see this, I've convinced my partner to finally go to IKEA with me so we can buy the materials that I need to build a tall cat tree. I mentioned before that we ran into a person at a Home Depot who's a carpenter who does cat trees or can do cat trees, but I really had this idea from the IKEAhacks.net where I made the previous cat tree for them that has since broken through various moves. The movers weren't too kind to the cat tree, and it is no longer a cat tree at all. It's just a table, literally a table with a cat bed on top, because the top tier has broken since and has been discarded. But this one is actually a shelving unit that's built with staggering steps up to a very high point, and I wanted to at least do one and see how they do with that. And hopefully, because she does like to be up high, that'll kind of give her something else to do. She loves to play, she loves to hunt, so like all of her activities are still very normal for her. So I don't know if it's just the environment or if she's developed an allergy and it just hasn't been identified, or if it's, I mean, she started looking when she was 4, because it's been about 3 years we've lived here, and that's when she started losing her fur. If it's just as she's getting older, she's getting more neurotic. But the one thing I don't want to do is like give her any meds, you know, like Prozac or something, because all other behavior is fine, and she's not completely bald. She has just stuck to licking one area, and it's not like she's moved on to other parts of her body. But at the same time, it's like, I want her to be comfortable. I want to figure out what's going on. Don't want her to be looking obsessively and not living her life like she could be. So I'm trying to figure out like what I can do to curb it until we can figure it out with the vet, or just decide, you know, this is just how she's going to be, and she's just going to be bald on her tummy, and we probably should be washing her or giving her a bath, maybe. I don't know what the vet's going to say, but I'm almost wondering if, I'm just trying to think of like, what could it be? I'm no expert, but having that summit kind of brought into perspective a lot of things I don't think about on the regular, mainly her age and how that might be affecting her. So it's scary. I don't like thinking about it, because when I think about her getting old, it reminds me of Kokuo, who was my first cat, and he passed away. We adopted him when he was 6, and we lost him right before he turned 10, and he had very aggressive sarcoma cancer. He had tumors. He had a tumor in the back of his head, and it was like pressing on his ocular nerve, so his right eyelid, his third eyelid was like closed because of the nerve was messing with it, so it wouldn't open anymore. He lost a lot of weight. He had an abscess. He had to lose a tooth. He already had one tooth missing when we adopted him, so he lost the other canine pokey tooth in the front. It was just like a rapid downhill, and I had like taken him to the vet a lot of times. Like, he always had his annual, he had his dental, nothing. Like, it didn't take until going and getting an MRI that they realized he had tumors all over his lungs and in his head, and there wasn't really anything we could do except for give him steroids until he was having seizures too from the tumor in his head, and we had to put him down. So thinking about Kabu getting old makes me scared. It's just, as much as I really loved the summit, I was so scared. I was thinking more and more in that dread of her getting older, and hoping and praying that she makes it past 10. Like, if I can get her past 10, not saying there's anything wrong with her, but just thinking of those things to think about as she's older, and wanting and needing to make sure, like, my heart, like, I know she's not going to be with me forever, but I really want to make sure she has a good long life, and taking her to the vet, of course, is important, but just thinking of, like, that thing, like, it's bringing me back it's bringing me back to when I thought initially that Kokuo had cancer. My partner's like, it's not cancer, quit freaking out. Vet did some tests, couldn't figure it out. We went to a specialist, they did the MRI, and they're like, yep, it's cancer. And I'm like, see, I knew. Like, I didn't know, but I WebMD'd, PetMD'd, and they were like, it might be cancer. That's always the joke. It's like, it might be cancer, but like legit it was cancer. And thinking of like how mad I was at first that my vet couldn't do that troubleshooting, couldn't do those tests. We did so many other things, like spending $1 bajillion on dental, doing the x-ray, doing this and that, and then only then paying even more money to get the scan done after everything else, even though they knew he was older, and didn't think like, oh yes, this is a senior cat, maybe we should screen for cancer. And they're like, oh, maybe it's a dental thing, let's spend. And I mean, the money part made me sad because there was a lot of money that I spent up to finding out was like the worst case scenario. But the fact that we spent so much time ruling out everything else and not the thing that actually was the problem. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just me. Like, would you not want to check for cancer first and make sure it's not like the really, really big problem and then scale it back? I don't know. But the fact that we had taken him to the vet every year, same, nothing, and then bam, here's this aggressive cancer that's just spread practically throughout his body, and now I can't do anything. And that was really like sad to me because I didn't know for so long that he was sick, and that was just really sad. So when I think about Kokuo, I get really worried about Kabu because she's already older than he was when we adopted him, and she's only 3 years away from being older than him when he passed. And that's like, these last like 3 years have just been in my head. I kind of suppressed it because I'm like, I don't want to think about her being in that condition, but the fact that she is continuing to overgroom, I do have to take her in for her wellness exam anyway, but I'm thinking like, one, she gets her blood work done anyway, so thank God, but two, like, is she still overgrooming because there's something that we haven't tested for yet? And the vet first said there wasn't anything wrong with her, and is there actually something that's like cancer and we just didn't see it yet? And, or, you know, it's probably not. I don't know. But, you know, she's looking only one area. Does that mean there's something wrong with her in just her lower region? And the vet just said, oh, you know, she's just a weirdo because we gave her this steroid shot. Nothing else is wrong with her. Her diet's been the same. You guys haven't changed your detergent. There aren't any irritants in your house that are causing her to react this way. It's just her. And then, you know, we've done this for 3 years now, and it's actually like something worse. Like, that's just like me me being paranoid because I've already been burned by the lack of care, I guess. But then it's my fault. I didn't get a second opinion. I just took my first vet's word for Kokuo's condition and let it be. And maybe if I took him to a clinic that was smaller and or maybe one that had more staff or something, like, I don't know what I could have done differently. Like, but that's just in my head. But overall, the summit was great. It's just made me more paranoid, but it's good to think about these things, maybe in a less stressful way, but in a realistic way, that Kabu is senior. Senior cats have needs. Senior cats need to be looked out for because cats, as I learned with Kokuo, can be totally fine one day and then have a 180, but they have already had an underlying condition, but because they are also prey, they don't exhibit those signs head on because they don't want to look weak, because instinctively, then if they're weak, they're an easy target. So that all makes sense. I just need to make sure that when I take her to the vet that I am very, very vocal about my concerns, and hopefully when we do go, that the doctor, who has seen her a few times now since we've moved here and had to change vets, will be understanding of my concerns, especially after the last time she was there and she got treated for the overlooking then, and it's still an issue. So yeah, that's me. So I'm just gonna end this video. Since I had stopped the camera, I've knit a few more. It's just so weird because it's like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful green, like this perfect gradient, and then BAM! We have this sharp chop of purple, and I don't like that. However, it's just this ombre, but then we have this sharp line of purple, and I really hope I can make that happen again when I knit the second sock, because I have no idea what else is going on inside of here. I'm sure if I wanted to be really, really pro, I would unwind this whole thing and make it into a cake, so then I could actually see what the process looks like as the cake wraps around. But hindsight is 20/20. Now that I know there's this sharp jump, it's only going to take a minute to wind up the next ball, but I'm wondering if I should do that for the next ball of yarn that I'm going to be using for these socks that I'm doing for the holidays, because if I have another surprise like this and the jump is before like the toe and it's just in an awkward spot, it's not going to look good. And then if it's only one join like this, I'm not going to get the sharp jump on the second sock, which could very well be the case. And that's also a concern, because then it's going to look weird if I have like this pretty watercolor effect on one sock and then the other one is just chopped like this. Hopefully my cousin will understand, but it just seems kind of tacky. So I don't know. Oh, did I lose? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, phew. I had my stitch marker just hanging on some fuzz, and I thought that maybe I lost it earlier and didn't realize it, because that happens sometimes, but not this time. Alright, so we just knit across the instep a little bit, but here we have our pretty gradient and then our very stark color here of our purple. Hopefully you guys, yeah, you can see it better here where this line is between the two, and it's like that all the way around right there. So I mean, if you think about it, it's just going to be a pretty fade, but I still have quite a bit before I can start doing the toe, so it's going to be a very long toe before it starts to come to the point. So there's that. Let me know in the comments if you're also a paranoid pet parent or a paranoid parent in general. I think, is it like the stereotype that like your first baby is the one that you obsess over, and then by the time you have your second or third kid, you're like, bleh, oh, they bonked their head when they were jumping on the bed, they'll live. I've been through this. Like you don't even care anymore because you already did everything once and you're prepared and you supposedly know what to expect. but every kid's different, every pet is different. Like, Koji is totally different than Kabu. He has, like, no problems. He licks when he needs to lick. He goes to the bathroom when he needs to go to the bathroom. He always goes in the litter box. He digs to high heaven, but he still does his thing. He has a little bit of dry skin, which also started when we moved here. So maybe it's dry skin? I don't know. She's not flaky, though. He's flaky. But again, no change in diet. They're great weight. They don't overeat. They just have their weirdness. But I really wish she would stop licking her tummy because she has no fur. I mean, it's probably bothering her. Something is bothering her. And it's not just like she's doing it, but the fact that something is bothering her enough to feel like this is how she's going to let out her energy and her frustration is just sad. And because we can't communicate the same way, and I don't know what it is that's setting her off, I have to keep doing all these other things to try to narrow it down based on the doctor saying it's not medical, but it's still persistent. But her blood work's fine. But I don't know. I think I'm just going to have to have her get an allergy test just to rule that out too. But anyway, let me know your woes, your pet parent woes, your human parent woes, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye!